Hello everyone, thank you for joining me on my first video devlog for my next project here for this new game that I'm working on, trying to put this degree to use and trying to make it profitable. I have, obviously a lot of us I think have played endless runners or endless games where you try to go for a high score, and I've always been a little intrigued. Come to find out, there's a lot more behind the scenes that makes those kinds of games work. Things like Subway Surfer or Flappy Bird or Temple Run, things like that, to name a few that I know were pretty formative for me. Behind the scenes of those kind of games, there's actually some really interesting stuff going on that I'm wanting to recreate here. So I have been here working a little bit the last couple days to build something like that, something a little different than I've usually done. What I want to do is an endless climber, right? What I'm going for is a sort of climb the tower. Maybe eventually there's a top, or maybe it's just an endless climber where you see how far you can get. But I want to do something like that. So I've been doing some research and building this. I'll show you a little bit what I've got here. First, I'll just kind of jump right in and show you. So if we play, we can see I've got my character here, and I've got some sort of platforming stuff going on here. If I exit out, you can see that I've got this giant cylinder, this giant tower, with all of my little shelves on here that the player is supposed to jump up onto to climb the tower. So at its base level, this is just a level with no other mechanics on top of it. It's just physical space, that's it. But I think it's a good start, and I've really enjoyed learning about how these things are built, and kind of taking a stab at building it myself. What's really happening here is, I'll start this over. When the game starts, you're in here like this, and if I exit out again, you can see I've got one layer of 12 tiles to form the first ring of this tower. All of these tiles are different. I've created 18 different tiles here, and I'll show you right there. Here's my meshes, right? So 18 different tiles with different layouts of shelves or platforms on each one. And when the game starts, I find the center point that I want to spawn those tiles at, and I randomly choose tiles for each spot, spawn them in, and we're good to go. That all belongs to this object here, the center spawn. So tiles spawn in on the center spawn, and another part of the center spawn is this box trigger, which you can see here for the first one. And when the player, maybe if I get back far enough you can see, when the player gets high enough, we want to create more tower for them to go, otherwise it wouldn't be endless, right? So once the player crosses through that box, that collision, we spawn another layer of tiles. We really actually spawn another center spawn, and that spawns the tiles right here. And along with the layer of tiles, that new center spawn will also have a box collision. So then we'll just keep stacking those layers of tiles forever. This has been really fun to build, because I kind of just took a stab at it without kind of following how a lot of other people have been doing this. There are definitely more complicated ways to do these sorts of things, i.e. the wave function collapse, which is also very interesting to me, which is a set of rules basically where you start with one spot, spawn a tile, and this tile only allows certain other tiles to spawn next to it, and those tiles then have their own rules, allowing tiles to spawn next to that, some to yes, some to no, and then the spots fill up with all the extra tiles. It collapses, right? I think that's why they call it the wave function collapse, because it kind of goes over like a wave. Anyway, so there's definitely more complicated ways to do this. I am just doing, a random integer 1 through 18, and choosing a mesh from there, and then just saying, okay, that mesh goes there. I feel like it works pretty well enough in practice. Once you're in here and you start jumping, you can see that for the most part there is somewhere to go, and you can just kind of go up indefinitely. You do get to some spots like this where I couldn't just jump right across the gap here. Let me try that again. Can't just jump right across the gap like so. I would have to drop down to this platform to then get up to the next one. This is also a little tricky, right? Because I can't go that way. I think I might be able to go this way. There you go. So it works. If the player ever gets to a spot where it's a little tricky to get to something, say for example that there was an item of interest right here. That's kind of a little bit of a tricky spot to get to in kind of this more open space, but adds another layer of challenge, I think, which is nice. And ideally, the player would just keep going up and up the tower until dying, or I guess until dying, or until quote unquote winning if there is a win condition. But that's where I'm at right now. My next steps are to add modifiers to the level. I don't think I would add any sort of, well, I don't know if I would add any sort of platforms that move or that maybe crumble and fall apart when they step on them, classic things like that. But I will definitely add enemies for the player to fight, maybe different weapons for them to pick up, different power-ups. I do also want to tune just like the control of the player a little bit, because right now it's really floaty, right? It kind of feels like we're moving underwater at this stage. So I want to get to a point where it feels a little bit better. It feels a little more twitchy and fast, and the player can jolt side to side pretty quickly. Let's see. I've kind of edited. You can see I'm using the third person template here. I've kind of just edited the template character stuff to my liking. I've disabled the camera input from the mouse, so the player can't move the mouse anymore. If this was connected like so, then I can ideally, well, I guess I can't because of how I've set it up, but I could move the mouse, right? But I don't want to do that. I just want to rotate around the platform. So inside the player, I just set the rotation of my camera to be whatever I want it to be, which is looking directly at the center. And it's not looking at a point exactly. It's looking at, that's what this guy's doing here. A little math for you. We're finding the look at rotation between an actor and another actor. And I'm starting at wherever the player is, but then I'm also looking at my center of the level, which is this, but I want to keep the height of the player. Otherwise, I would, as I went up, I would continually like start facing more and more down, right? So I want to keep the camera at the same levelness. I don't want it to pitch up or down. I'm kind of getting long-winded here, I guess. I'm going into a little much, but I like where I'm at right now. Yeah, my next steps, now that that's finished, I do want to add some collision. Maybe just real quick, I'll show you some collision stuff here. I built this mesh in Blender and then exported it. I built all the meshes in Blender and then exported it to be here. And then my collisions, when you generate collisions in Unreal, it's not super friendly for complex meshes. If I just add a sphere simplified collision, then it would just say, okay, we're taking, you know, the widest points of the mesh here and we're making a sphere around it, and this is your collision, right? Obviously I don't want that. I want the player to be able to jump and land on the platforms. So I've gone in and individually added each box collision for each of these platforms. And what I need to do now is I need to come back and add some more collision on the wall itself here, as well as on the space right outside all of the tiles. That will help me lock the player inside inside this area, and the player won't be able to fall out of the area. It could possibly happen that there's a chance that could happen because some of these angles on these boxes are a little off, and if the player hits it, then they kind of slide towards the outer edge a little bit, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to try to add the collision to make it just kind of a corridor here that they're in. If that doesn't work, or if that kind of gives me issues, then I probably will have to come back in here and shrink these box collisions a little bit. Do like so, and line this up right exactly with the edge of that, which I don't super want to do, because then I'll also have to add another one here, right? And line that right up with the edge of that side. That's a little tedious. If I have to do that in the end, then I will. But if I can avoid it, I'm gonna try to avoid that. Get this back to where I was. There we go. Yeah. So next steps is adding those collisions, and then once I've got collisions and the player locked inside, good to go there. Then I am going to start on adding some gameplay mechanics. Maybe I'll start with some weapons that the player can pick up and equip, make the weapons work, give the player some targets to shoot at. Once that works, turn the targets into enemies, make the enemies shoot or attack back to the player. All that good stuff. Classic game dev action. So, yeah, it's gone on pretty long enough. Thank you for sticking around if you have to the end here. Appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one. I'll try to do updates probably once a week, but don't hold me to that. It might end up being once every 10 or 11 days or 2 weeks, but we're going to shoot for once a week, and I'll try to make that happen for you guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.